still clung to the emerald hills, a soft, ethereal veil over Diep's small, humble farm. The air was crisp, carrying the earthy scent of damp soil and the sweet perfume of blooming wildflowers. Diep, already up and about, was tending to her chickens, their contented clucking a familiar symphony. She hummed a quiet tune, her hands busy, her heart surprisingly light. Today was different. Today, James was coming. James, the young billionaire, a man whose world was a dizzying kaleidoscope of high-rise buildings, international markets, and endless meetings, was a stark contrast to her simple, rural existence. Yet, in the quiet moments they shared on her farm, he shed his corporate skin, transforming into Day, the gentle, thoughtful man who found solace in her world. Their love was an unlikely, beautiful anomaly, a delicate bloom in the harsh landscape of social expectations, a sleek, expensive car, a jarring sight against the rustic backdrop, soon pulled up to her gate. James emerged, dressed in casual clothes that still hinted at their designer origins, a wide smile lighting up his face. He looked tired, the faint shadows under his eyes betraying the relentless demands of his life. But his gaze, when it met hers, was filled with an unmistakable warmth. "Diep," he called out, his voice a welcome sound. He strode towards her, his long strides covering the distance quickly, and pulled her into a warm embrace. "I missed you. I missed you too, James," she murmured, burying her face in his shoulder, inhaling the faint scent of his expensive cologne mixed with the fresh morning air. For a moment, the world outside their embrace faded, leaving only the comforting reality of their shared presence. After a simple breakfast of freshly brewed tea and sticky rice cakes, James looked at her, his eyes gleaming with a mischievous glint. "So, what's on the agenda today, my farm girl? More adventures in rural living?" Diep laughed, a clear, melodious sound. "Today, Mr. Billionaire, you get to experience the true joy of mountain life. We're going up the hill to chop firewood." James's eyes widened slightly, a flicker of apprehension crossing his face. "Chop firewood? On a hill? Are you sure my delicate city hands are up to the task?" "We'll see," Diep teased, grabbing a small axe and a length of rope. "Come on, it'll be good for you." The ascent was more challenging than James had anticipated. The path was steep, uneven, and overgrown with thorny bushes. He was used to paved roads, to air-conditioned offices, to the smooth glide of elevators. His expensive sneakers, while stylish, were ill-suited for the rugged terrain. He found himself breathing heavily, his muscles protesting with every upward step. "Wow, Diep," he gasped, wiping sweat from his brow. "This is quite the workout. I'm already tired." Diep, however, moved with an effortless grace, her bare feet seemingly gliding over the rough ground. She was a creature of these hills, her body accustomed to the demands of physical labor. She looked back at him, a playful smile on her lips. "You city folk are so soft. This is just a warm-up." James watched her, a profound admiration filling him. She was strong, resilient, utterly at home in this challenging environment. He, with all his wealth and power, felt utterly out of his element, humbled by her simple strength. "I really admire you, Diep," he confessed, his voice sincere. "Living here, doing all this hard work, it's truly amazing." They reached a small clearing near the top, where several fallen trees lay waiting to be chopped. Diep picked up a larger axe, its blade glinting. "All right, lesson 1, proper chopping technique." As Diep demonstrated, a sudden, frantic buzzing filled the air. A large insect, disoriented, flew directly into Diep's eye. She cried out, dropping the axe, her hand flying to her face. "Ow! Something flew into my eye!" James was instantly by her side, his corporate composure replaced by genuine concern. "Are you all right? Let me see." He gently took her face in his hands, his fingers surprisingly delicate as he examined her eye. He could see a small, Dark speck, hold still, he murmured, his voice soft, his face close to hers. He leaned in, his breath warm on her cheek, and carefully, with the tip of his finger, he dislodged the tiny intruder. There. Is that better? Diep blinked, the irritation subsiding. Yes, much better. Thank you, James. Her heart fluttered at his closeness, at the unexpected intimacy of the moment. He was a billionaire, a man who commanded empires, yet he had just leaned in to carefully remove a bug from her eye. It was a small gesture, but it spoke volumes about his care for her. They spent the next hour chopping firewood, the rhythmic thud of the axes echoing through the quiet forest. James, though still a bit clumsy, found a surprising satisfaction in the physical labor. He felt a sense of accomplishment, a connection to the earth that his city life rarely offered. Once they had a sizable pile, they bundled the logs together with the rope. All right, now for the fun part. Diep grinned, hoisting a large bundle onto her shoulder, carrying it back down. James, despite his initial fatigue, found a renewed strength. He matched her stride, carrying his own heavy load, determined not to be outdone. The descent was easier, their laughter echoing through the trees as they navigated the winding path. Back at the farm, after a refreshing wash, Diep looked at the overgrown weeds around her house. Time for some tidying up. These weeds are getting out of control. James, without hesitation, grabbed a hoe. Lead the way, boss. Your new farmhand is ready for duty. He spent the next hour diligently clearing weeds, his brow furrowed in concentration. He even helped her clear some fallen cassava plants, their stems heavy and unwieldy. As they worked, James observed her, his heart aching with a newfound empathy. Diep, he said, his voice soft. It's so much work. You do all this by yourself? It must be incredibly tiring. Diep smiled, a weary but genuine smile. It's just life here, James. I'm used to it. It's my home. I've grown up doing these things. He watched her, a profound respect deepening his love. He was used to a life of ease, of having every need catered to. She, on the other hand, built her life with her own hands, her strength and resilience a constant source of awe for him. He then noticed her old, cracked phone lying on a nearby table. Your phone's broken, Diep. Let me fix it for you. He took it, his fingers surprisingly nimble as he tinkered with the device. In a few minutes, he had it working again. There you go. And please, Diep, always keep your phone with you. I worry about you out here. Later, as the sun began its slow descent, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, James helped Diep burn the piles of dry leaves and weeds they had collected. The smoke curled into the sky, carrying with it the scent of burning earth, a symbol of cleansing, of renewal. He then helped her rearrange some of the tools and supplies around the house, bringing a sense of order to the rustic space. The last task of the day was the vegetable garden. James, now surprisingly energized by the physical work, helped Diep loosen the soil and remove the last stubborn weeds from around her thriving vegetable patch. As dusk settled, Diep began to prepare dinner. The small kitchen, filled with the comforting aromas of home cooking, became a sanctuary. She cooked rice over a wood fire, its gentle crackle a soothing sound. She stir-fried chayote leaves with garlic, their fresh, green color a vibrant contrast to the golden hue of the fried chicken eggs she prepared. They sat together at a small wooden table, sharing the simple meal. The food, humble yet delicious, tasted like pure comfort. They ate in comfortable silence for a while, the day's hard work giving way to a shared sense of contentment. Then, James looked at her, his eyes filled with a thoughtful gaze. You know, Diep, he began, his voice soft. Sometimes, when I'm in the city, surrounded by all the noise and the endless demands, I dream of a life like this. Diep looked at him, her heart skipping a beat. A life like this? Yes. He nodded, his gaze distant, lost in a quiet reverie. A small house, maybe with a little garden, a few chickens, and you. Just you and me. No board meetings, no stock market, no endless pressures. Just peace, just us. Diep's eyes widened, a profound hope blossoming in her chest. It was her dream too, a dream she had never dared to voice aloud, believing it too simple, too insignificant for a man like him. That's my dream too, James, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. A comfortable silence settled between them again, filled with the unspoken promise of a shared future, a small dream that felt impossibly vast. As they finished their meal, Diep reached for a piece of food, her hand moving instinctively. "Hockey," she murmured, her voice trailing off, a sudden sadness clouding her eyes. James looked at her, his own heart aching. Hockey, their beloved pet, was gone. A painful reminder of the fragility of life, of the losses they had endured. He reached across the table, gently taking her hand. "I know, Diep. I miss him too." The shared grief, the quiet understanding, wove another thread into the intricate tapestry of their love. James then leaned back, a pensive look on his face. "You know, Diep, I've realized something important recently. People chase so many things in life. Money, power, fame. But what's the ultimate destination? What's the true goal?" He paused, then answered his own question. "It's happiness, and knowing when enough is enough. Knowing how to be content with what you have, with who you have." Diep looked at him, her heart swelling with love. He was not just a billionaire. He was a philosopher, a man who sought deeper meaning, who understood the true value of life beyond material possessions. Their conversation flowed, easy and natural, their minds connecting on a level that transcended their disparate backgrounds. As the last rays of sunlight faded, casting long shadows across the yard, James checked his watch. A sigh escaped his lips. "I have to go, Diep. Work calls. But I'll be back tonight, I promise." Diep nodded, a familiar pang of sadness at his departure, but also a quiet certainty of his return. She walked him to his car, their hands intertwining for a moment. A silent promise exchanged between them. He leaned in, his lips brushing hers in a soft, tender kiss. A promise of their shared dream. A testament to a love that defied all differences. As his car disappeared down the dusty road, Diep stood there, the scent of his cologne lingering in the air, her heart filled with a quiet hope. Their love was different, yes, but it was real, and it was growing, nurtured by shared dreams and the simple beauty of her little farm. As his car disappeared down the dusty road, Diep stood there, bathed in the silver glow of the rising moon, her heart filled with a quiet hope. Their love was different, yes, a delicate bloom in the harsh landscape of social expectations, but it was real, and it was growing nurtured by shared dreams and the simple beauty of her little farm. The scent of his cologne lingered in the air, a phantom reminder of his comforting presence, and her thoughts, a quiet symphony of hope and uncertainty, illuminated her path forward. James plunged back into the relentless, unforgiving world of the city. The polished concrete and gleaming glass of his corporate office, the hushed efficiency of his staff, and the cold, logical precision of his ledgers felt jarringly sterile after the raw, earthy honesty of the farm. His father's summons for an important meeting with a crucial partner had been a stark reminder of the empire that demanded his undivided attention. An empire now under insidious attack. The meeting itself was a tense, arduous affair. His father's stern gaze, usually reserved for underperforming executives, was now fixed on him, sharp and dissecting. The partners, shrewd and calculating, spoke of disrupted supply chains, mounting financial losses, and the unsettling whispers of industrial sabotage. James presented his strategies with his usual precision, his voice calm and authoritative, but his mind was a battlefield. The corporate jargon, the intricate financial models, felt hollow and distant, compared to the tangible reality of fresh earth and the quiet strength he saw in Diep's eyes. He observed the subtle hints of his father's grim triumph in his forced return, a silent victory in his ongoing war against James's relationship with Diep. In the days that followed, the conflict at the timber yard escalated with alarming speed. The initial acts of sabotage morphed into more aggressive, overt tactics. A crucial timber shipment, rerouted to avoid the affected areas, mysteriously vanished before reaching its destination. A critical saw blade was not just dulled, but deliberately shattered. A key piece of machinery, recently repaired at great expense, broke down again, its intricate components showing undeniable signs of deliberate tampering. Far beyond mere wear and tear, James knew with chilling certainty that this was Dee, his ruthless rival from Visa Company, relentlessly pursuing his destructive agenda. His past leniency towards Dee, a youthful misjudgment born of misguided empathy, now felt like a heavy chain binding him to this escalating war. A strategic error he vowed never to repeat. "If I find proof that Dee is behind this," James vowed, his voice low and dangerous, "I will not show him any mercy. Not this time." He threw himself into the investigation, his corporate instincts sharpening, dissecting every anomaly, every suspicious detail, every deviation from the norm. He contacted his network of informants, subtly probing for any intelligence on Visa's clandestine operations, their underhanded dealings. He spent sleepless nights analyzing market trends, cross-referencing supplier lists, meticulously searching for the invisible threads that might lead him back to Dee, to the mastermind behind the chaos. But Dee remained infuriatingly elusive, shielded by layers of complex legalities, shell corporations, and a conveniently timed absence in Thailand, making direct accusation impossible without irrefutable, ironclad proof. The pressure mounted, a relentless, suffocating weight that threatened to crush him. His father's criticisms, once focused solely on Diep and his perceived distraction, now extended to his handling of the crisis, his inability to immediately neutralize the threat. "You're distracted, James. Your focus is divided. This obsession with that farm girl is costing us." His father's accusations were like a constant refrain, a reminder of the price of his love. But James didn't care about the cost. Not anymore. All that mattered was Diep, and the truth behind her devastating farewell. He would not abandon Diep, and he would not let Dee destroy his company, his legacy. He would fight both battles, simultaneously, driven by a fierce loyalty to his family's inheritance, and an even fiercer, unyielding love for the woman who had captured his heart and showed him a different kind of life. Meanwhile, at the farm, Diep resumed her life with a quiet, almost defiant resilience. The silence of the house, though initially vast, gradually filled with the familiar, comforting rhythm of her work. She tended to her garden, her hands deftly weeding and planting, finding a profound solace in the tangible growth of life beneath her touch. She swept the dust from the house, airing out the rooms, transforming the desolate space into a warm, welcoming home, a small bastion against the lurking uncertainty. Her heart, however, still ached with the absence of hockey, a constant, poignant reminder of the unseen dangers that still lurked, of the abruptness with which peace could be shattered. She would often walk the perimeter of the farm, her eyes scanning the tree line, a subtle tremor of fear accompanying her every step, a primal instinct born from her recent ordeal. Phone calls became their lifeline, slender threads connecting their two disparate worlds. Every evening, without fail, James would call. His voice, though often tired, was a beacon of unwavering support, a lifeline thrown across the miles separating them. He spoke of his day, carefully omitting the grim details of the timber yard's woes and the escalating threat from Dee. He spoke instead of his hope for their future, of the new plans he was meticulously envisioning for the farm, subtle hints of the dream he held for them both. Diep, in turn, shared her day, her voice soft, painting a picture of quiet domesticity, of small victories in the garden, of the enduring beauty of her rural world. She never pressed him about his burdens, sensing the immense weight he carried, but her quiet understanding, her simple presence on the other end of the line, was a powerful, unspoken comfort to his often stressed and turbulent mind. "I miss you, James," she confessed one evening, her voice barely a whisper, thick with longing. "The farm feels empty without you. Even with everything I do, there's a part that feels incomplete." "I miss you too, my love," James replied, his heart aching with a profound tenderness. "More than you know. Every moment away from you feels like an eternity. But I'll be back. Soon. I promise." He knew he was asking her to wait, to endure loneliness and uncertainty, to face her fears alone in the quiet countryside. But he also knew her immense strength, her unyielding spirit. And he was fighting, battling relentlessly, for a future where they would never again be separated by distance, by danger, or by the crushing weight of societal expectations. The weeks passed, a relentless cycle of work and quiet vigilance. James battled corporate sabotage by day and researched criminal syndicates by night. He delved deeper into the murky world of Visa Company, uncovering its intricate web of shell corporations, its dubious offshore accounts, its shadowy dealings that stretched across international borders. He found chilling whispers of its owner, D, being connected to a larger, more elusive organization. A vast, unseen network that pulled strings from behind the scenes, manipulating markets, orchestrating illicit trades, and eliminating obstacles with terrifying cold efficiency. The pieces of the puzzle were slowly, painfully falling into place, revealing a vast, terrifying conspiracy that threatened to engulf not just his company, but the entire region, its tendrils reaching even into the quiet corners of Diep's world. The constant threat, however, hung over them like a shroud. James knew he was putting himself, and by extension, Diep, in direct, mortal danger. The Zom Group, this shadowy, ruthless entity, was known for its brutal swiftness in eliminating anyone who stood in their way, anyone who threatened to expose their operations. He never spoke of these darker truths to Diep, shielding her from the full weight of the terrifying reality. He maintained a facade of calm, focusing on their shared future, their dream of a peaceful life. But the weight of the secret, of the impending storm, was a heavy burden, a constant ache in his chest, a battle fought in silence. One evening, after a particularly tense and exhaustive meeting with his father, filled with chilling revelations and grave predictions about D's next move, James found himself driving back towards the farm. His heart buzzed with the details of the strategy they had finally formulated. An audacious, risky counterattack that could either save his company or destroy it entirely. But as he neared the familiar turnoff to Diep's road, a different kind of urgency gripped him. It wasn't logic, but a primal, unwavering sense of unease. He thought of Diep, alone in the quiet house, vulnerable. The thought was a searing flame in his gut. He parked his car a distance away, its headlights extinguished, and walked the rest of the way, moving like a shadow through the familiar paths. The farm was quiet, bathed in moonlight, a deceptive tranquility. He approached the small house, his senses heightened, every nerve alert. He reached the porch, his hand on the doorknob. It turned. The door was unlocked. A sliver of light escaped from within. A cold dread washed over him. Diep was usually so careful, so meticulous about securing her home. 1,000 anxieties, born from the recent scare and the ever-present threats from the Zom Group, flooded his mind. He pushed the door open gently, his heart pounding a frantic rhythm against his ribs. Diep was inside, preparing for bed, her back to him. She turned, startled, her eyes widening in surprise. "James, what are you doing here? You're back." He simply looked at her, his eyes filled with a love so profound it transcended words, a fierce, protective instinct that needed no explanation. He walked towards her, pulling her into a tight embrace, burying his face in her hair, inhaling her familiar scent. "I couldn't leave you," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. "Not tonight. I had a bad feeling." He held her close, feeling the warmth of her body against his, a silent promise to protect her, to defy every obstacle, to fight every battle, for their love. He knew the world might be against them. His father might disapprove. His corporate empire might crumble. But Diep was his world, his entire universe. And he would protect her, even if it meant defying every expectation, battling every shadowy figure, and confronting every tangible threat that dared to come near their simple, hard-won joy. His resolve hardened, a fierce, protective instinct taking over, guiding him back towards the light escaping from the doorway. He would not rest until she was truly safe, until their love, different but undeniably real, could finally flourish in peace. He leaned in, his lips finding hers in a tender, lingering kiss, a silent vow that spoke of unwavering commitment, of a love that defied all boundaries, a promise of forever until the end of the world.